Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me spend a few minutes of your time today. I do appreciate it. If you like what you hear, please hit those like, share, subscribe, all those good things. Leave a comment wherever. Do all the things, right? Only takes a couple seconds, and it just helps people find us just like you did. Before I get too involved, don't let me forget this. I get reminded when I forget this because I have people say, hey, you forgot. So the books are available at authorjerrymitchell.com, or you can go to givegod90.com. Follow the links. They're all there. All right. So, had a question, and I'm going to say a mother was asked by a young child, how big is God? And that's not a real easy answer. Okay. But I'm going to tackle it. I'm not going to say that I am entirely right, but I think I hopefully will be able to give you a good explanation. Let's put it that way. Okay. A long time ago, almost 35 or 36 years ago now, I was talking to a pastor, and he was telling me that he had a philosophy professor, and this philosophy professor in his class said, would God create a rock so big that even he couldn't pick it up? Well, the professor answered his own question. He says, yes, but why would he want to? Now, I looked at this pastor I was talking to. I'm like, well, that's just kind of silly. And he says, well, you have to look at this philosophically. I think, no, I don't. That's just silly. It might sound like a good philosophical discussion, but it actually displays how confused so many people are about how powerfully awesome our Creator really, really is. And of course, no discussion of that nature has any practical application when it comes to knowing or understanding our Creator from either a physical or spiritual point of view. So let's look at a few verses, and we'll see where some of this confusion might come from. If we look at Genesis 3:8, the man and his wife heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the breeze of the day, and they hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God among them in the trees. So I'm not going to go into how you can hear a voice walking. I've talked about that before because the actual word means sound. But what Moses is implying here is that they heard our Creator walking. And this gives us the impression or the understanding that he was in his creation walking on earth. Okay? Now let's compare that with what David writes, Psalm 95:4. In his hands are the depths of the earth, and the mountain peaks belong to him. So David's saying, and this is where we get the saying, he holds the whole world in his hands, right? That he's large enough to hold the world in his hands. Quite a vast difference, right? Right? In Exodus 33:21-23, the Lord continued, there is a place near me where you are to stand upon a rock. And when my glory passes by, I will put you in the cleft of the rock and cover you with my hand until I've passed by. Then I will take my hand away and you will see my back, but my face you must not see. We get this image of not just someone walking, but someone large enough walking that he can cover an entire man the size of Moses with a hand. That's pretty big, right? And then, of course, there is Ezekiel's vision in chapter 1, beginning in verse 26. Above the expanse, or above the firmament over the heads, was the likeness of a throne, the appearance of sapphire, and on the throne high above was a figure like that of a man. from what seemed to be his waist up. I saw a gleam like amber with what looked like fire within it all around. And from what seemed to be his waist down, I saw what looked like fire, and brilliant lights surrounded him. The appearance of the bright light all around him was like that of a rainbow in a cloud on a rainy day. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell face down and heard a voice speaking. So Ezekiel is looking at a very, very long distance, a long, long, long way away, above the firmament, right? So way out there. But he can clearly see this in his vision. Yeah, that makes sense, kind of, right? Now, Ezekiel doesn't give a comparable size. There's no reference here. But in verse 22, he uses the words awesome expanse. And that would imply, something much, much larger than we can imagine. It's huge, right? If you look out in the night sky, you think of it as an awesome expanse. Make it 10 times that, okay? Or more. Just saying. It's big. It's big. So how big is God? Let me try it this way. Have you ever been driving towards a mountain? You're a long, long way off, right? But as you kind of get closer, you see that first peak. The best example I know that I've actually seen, I've actually witnessed, is if you travel from Kansas to Colorado in the United States on Interstate 70, you can just begin to see the tip of Pikes Peak, and it's a long way, right? And you see the tip of it come up. And you think, boy, I've gotten there. And you keep driving, and that tip keeps getting a little larger and a little larger, a little taller, a little taller. And you think, wow, I should have been there by now. And you keep driving, and you keep driving, and you keep driving, and you keep driving some more. And you reach a point where eventually you think you can see the entire northeastern face of Pikes Peak. And you keep driving, and you keep driving, and then something kind of strange happens, all right? The closer you get, the less visible the entire mountain is. But the more visible, the smaller details become, right? Once you get there, of course, on the east is Colorado Springs. Then you get to Manitou Springs. Then you get on the north side, and you come to Woodland Park and then divide. If you go to the south side, there's Victor and Cripple Creek. But if you go to the west, there is South Park. Yes, it's a real place. And all of these places are great to visit. Been to all of them. They're great places to visit. Great. People out there are wonderful. They're fabulous. But each of these places, each of these towns, each of these areas, they have their own characteristics because they are so spread out. And that's kind of, in a way, not exactly, but kind of in a way, the way our Creator chooses to reveal himself to us, right? He is much, much larger than anything we could ever hope to imagine. But at the same time, he's quite detailed. Someone who doesn't know our Creator or doesn't look for him, they're not even going to see that tip, right? They're not going to see that first glimpse. But for those who choose to look for him, that first glimpse, you might think, wow, I've gotten here. There it is. There he is. I'm here. I know him. And then the closer you get, the more you learn, the more you study, the more you realize, I need to get closer. So you keep getting closer, you keep getting closer, you keep getting closer. And you get that same strange sensation that because you're getting so close, you can't see the whole entity. You can't see all of it. All you can see are those smaller details. And you realize how vastly large you must be, because now I'm here, but I can't see the whole thing. And all you do is you get to these details, right? You see things. And sometimes the first detail that people come across is the love and the devotion. And that's where they want to live. They don't go anywhere else. That's all they know. They just want to be right there. They never want to go out and visit his righteousness. They never want to go visit his holiness. They never want to go visit his justness. And these are all other characteristics of who he really is. Now, other people, they might find these other characteristics and stay there. And they never go visit and find the real love and devotion. They never go find the justness. They never go find the righteousness. They never go find the awesomeness of who our Creator is. You know, they find, oh, I'm here in righteousness, I'll just stay right here. Oh, I'm here in justness, I'll just stay right here. I don't ever have to leave. But you're missing not just the mountain, but you're missing the real Creator. How big is God? He's big enough to hold not only the earth in his hands, but all of his creation will fit in his hands, and with room left over for more. Right? I mean, he's that big. There's always room for more. But at the same time, he's able to step inside of his creation, and we can hear him walking. We can have him shield us from what might harm us. He's large enough to watch over us while having the ability to appear to us in a multitude of ways, right? Ways that we think we can understand just that little bit. He speaks to Moses from a burning bush and later appears to the mixed multitude covering an entire mountain. Now, none of these sound like a being that could create something so large he couldn't lift it, which is kind of silly. So turn off the ridiculous philosophy and look at what is really written. Look at what's really written. And when we do that, we realize our Creator is so large. We just have no way to comprehend how large he really is. It's impossible. But at the same time, we can understand he wants to be part of our lives so much he's willing to let us spend time in those smaller details of who and what he actually is. I don't think you can get any larger than that. So how would you answer a young child, when they hear the stories and they look at you and say, well, how big is God? How do you answer that? Well, here's my idea, okay? On a nice starry night, you take them outside and you show them all the stars in the sky and you tell them, he can hold all of this in a hand. But at the same time, he wants to know you well enough that you call him friend. So how do you answer an adult who says, well, how big is God? Probably the same way. Probably the same way. That is just something to think about until next time. Until then, I do wish you many, many blessings, everyone.